Sometimes in art, you need to make duplicates of things. In design, you often make duplicates for things like repetition, but sometimes just in drawing, having a duplicate is a good idea. I had a student one time who every single project would make two versions of it. He'd have a rough draft that was ghost marked and smudged, and he drew too dark, and he was sketchy, and the paper was kind of crumpled half the time. It was rough. But once he had it the way he liked it, he would make a duplicate of that image to use for the final draft. Before he added his shading, ink, color, he made a second draft. So, being able to make a duplicate of your art can come in handy. However, it is not good to duplicate someone else's art. Duplicating your own art, not cheating. Duplicating someone else's art is cheating. So, please do not copy or trace someone else's images, but it is okay to copy your own. So I'm going to show you 3 methods to copy images. When you're using this whole duplication method, the type of paper you start on doesn't matter because this is a rough draft. One thing I do suggest though is to make sure your rough draft is nice and dark. You can do this with a pencil, with a marker, with a pen, whatever you'd like to make sure that your rough image is dark. Doesn't matter if you ghost mark this because it's just a rough draft. Also doesn't matter if you smudge it. The first method of being able to copy this is to simply take standard paper and put it on top to see if you can see through it. Now, there is a trick to help you out with this. This line paper is on a darkish table. This translucent paper actually shows some of that darkness through. It makes the line not as contrasted to show up. If you have a spare piece of white paper that you can slip underneath your drawing, you can see that you are creating higher contrast by putting that white page underneath. So when you put the paper on top, you will have a better likelihood of seeing the image through to be able to duplicate it. And you have your copy. Anytime you make these duplicates, you should always draw very lightly. Oftentimes, your pencil drawing is just the first step. You're going to be shading, using ink, using color, and you don't want that pencil to show through. Pencil will even show through paint if the pencil is dark enough and you're using translucent colors like red or yellow. So always draw these duplicates lightly. Now let's say instead of copy paper, which is kind of thin, you are working with poster board, Bristol board, or cardstock. This is thicker and you can't see through it. It doesn't work. So here's our second method to copy onto a thicker surface that you can't see through. Firstly, I'm going to take my rough draft. I'm going to flip it over onto that white paper I was using. And I'm going to add a layer of graphite to the back of the drawing. Now some people like to shade the whole thing solid. That seems like it wastes a lot of graphite. I don't need the whole paper shaded. I just need the backs of what I'm going to draw shaded. So I just go around and quickly put a layer of graphite on the back of the lines. This is also really handy if you need a flipped version of an image, because when you put that shading onto the back of it, it pushes your graphite onto your scrap paper. So you have a flipped version of your picture. So now that I have this graphite on the back, I'm going to put my cardstock, my Bristol board down, line up my drawing on top of it where I want it to be. Always good to check. And then with firm pressure, but not heavy, heavy, heavy. You don't want to make ghost marks. Remember the ghost spoons, right? You're going to trace your image with firm but not hard pressure all the way around to push that graphite that's on the back onto your card. Now, 2 tips. 1, holding down both papers, you can curl up your original so that you can see if you have caught every single spot. Second tip is, if you have a very complicated image and you're worried about missing parts of it, instead of tracing with a regular pencil, grab a colored pencil and trace out your image firmly, but not pressing too hard, with a colored pencil. That way you can see where you've done your tracing and not worry about things you're going to miss. Our art room, we have a light table, and the light table will let you put your image, and then when you lay your paper on top of that image, it will show through quite clearly to be able to make your duplicate. Another thing a light table will do for you is it'll even let you see through the thicker paper, like cardstock, Bristol board, or poster board. Now you can make a homemade light table by putting a light inside of a clear plastic box, or if you happen to have a glass table, like a coffee table, putting a light underneath that, shining up, to be able to use as a light table. Not everybody has a light table available sitting around their house, but most people have a window, and it works kind of the same way. So I have a little bit of blue painter's tape, and I'm going to take my drawing and I'm going to tape it with just a little bit of tape to the window. Then, whether I am using paper or even cardstock, poster, or Bristol board, you'll be able to see through that picture. So those are 3 methods that you can use to duplicate images, whether for design or if you would like a rough draft, final draft version of your artworks. Hope it helps.